Welcome again, everyone, to the Board of Adjustments meeting, July pre-meeting for July 11th, 2023. Present board members are Augustine, is that how you pronounce it? Augustine, Avalos, and Quentin Smith, and myself, Bill Heiner. With that, I'll turn things over to Larry or.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And so what the Board of Adjustment has before them tonight is a variance from the ordinance, and it would be what I consider a minor variance. The applicant is asking for a reduction in the garage setback by 4 feet from 26 feet to 22 feet. And I believe in April, the Board of Adjustment did a variance also, and that was for the wall, remember, on sloping property. This is a completely different matter. It's not really that variance request, remember, is created by the lot because of the geology of the lot. And this is more of a variance from what I would say a nuance of the ordinance. Oh, okay. And she's not waving at me, she's waving at someone else. So, and so as you remember, or we may or may not remember, but the Board of Adjustment needs to find a hardship that is a hardship for this property owner applicant in order to grant the variance. And I'll just read those quickly under state law and in our ordinance. They're exactly the same. Say the same thing. It says literal enforcement of this title would cause an unreasonable hardship for the applicant. It is not necessary to carry out the general purpose of the title. And the title, of course, of any single family zone is to design neighborhoods that are or to establish neighborhoods that are well designed, that they are appropriate, have appropriate yard space, appropriate setbacks, they're protected, that would result in fire safety, nice looking neighborhoods. Now, the Board of Adjustment shall not find an unreasonable hardship if the hardship is self-imposed or economic. Well, I think this certainly is not an economic request. And the board could argue, well, they're asking for something, so it's self-imposed. But they didn't impose the ordinance. They're just asking for a variance from it. That's at least the way I look at it. And then it says to determine whether or not the enforcement of this title will cause an unreasonable hardship, the Board of Adjustment shall not find an unreasonable hardship unless the alleged hardship is located or associated with the property for which the variance is sought, comes from circumstances peculiar to the property, not from conditions that are general to the neighborhood. There are special circumstances attached to the property that do not generally apply to other properties in the same district and relate directly to the hardship complained of. Granting the variance is essential to the enjoyment of a substantial property right possessed by others in the district. The variance will not substantially affect the general plan and will not be contrary to the public interest, and the spirit of the title is observed and substantial justice done. So you can tell an attorney wrote all of that because it's half of it's, I'm sorry, Chase, half of it's hard to understand in lay terms, but what they're saying is what this applicant asking for. Is it going to cause a public health interest, or is it going to ruin the neighborhood where they're asking for it? Is it going to cause a health safety problem? And is it fair? Or is it equitable? And I think with this applicant asking to add 4 feet to their property, I think that the ordinance is causing an unreasonable hardship because you'll see in my presentation in the meeting, a third of the phase of this subdivision already are enjoying the same right. that this applicant's asking for. They're not asking for anything that's going to ignore or violate the basic 20-foot setback. They're just asking to be within that range between 26 and 20 feet. And so I'm here to, Chase or I may be able to answer questions. Chase is actually your attorney for the Board of Adjustment. And so if you have any questions of him as far as the legitimacy of what I'm telling you, because he is your advisor, not I'm just representing the applicant's application. I'm not representing the applicant, but the application. And so do you have any questions for me at this point? So.
I think I'm still wondering or trying to understand. So there are some setbacks that are already within the range of what they're requesting. So do those setbacks meet the ordinance, or do they not meet the ordinance and they just were able to somehow build it that way?
They do meet the ordinance, because when they were reviewed, and like I told you when we were discussing earlier, this particular developer, Garbett Homes, did not choose to do. There was an opportunity to do a density buy-up, and where everything would have had to be in 26 feet. They chose not to do that. And the garages, I should say, the front of the house always has to be 20 feet, and so there's some garages that are in front of the house, but they're 26 feet. Now, I think the way I would interpret this ordinance, that allowing a garage in front of the front facade of the house is not keeping in with the spirit of the ordinance, more than being 2 feet closer with the garage. And I'll explain why, because the intent when this Highlands master plan was put forth was to create a neighborhood where the living space was primarily what you see when you come into the neighborhood, and not the garage. They wanted to get away from the snout houses, their old type, 90s, 80s, 90s development, where you see the garage first and then the living quarters behind that. And so I think that, well, I know that's the reason that they had the front portion of the house and then the garage 6 feet back. But with them choosing not to do that density buy-up, they really weren't. There was nothing for the city to enforce upon them to do that. Now, they could choose to do it voluntarily, which they did in some cases. But in other cases, they had the garage that was even with the front facade of the house, a couple of feet behind the front facade of the house, or the garage is out in front of the house. But the interpretation was, as long as the garage was 26 feet, with that garage in front of the living quarters, then they still met the spirit of the ordinance. So, yeah, that was for the living portion of it. Yeah. So if they wanted to have the living portion of the house, they could have been at 20 feet, with the garage set back to, yeah. So, trying to visualize.
So aside from wanting to have the living front and center, what's the other purpose of having the 26-foot setback? Is it for vehicles or for?
No, I think it was purely for a visual effect in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I guess I have maybe a series of questions, maybe just one question in terms of the size of the garage based on the report that I read. I guess the truck just doesn't fit in there. So my first question is, are all the garages in that development by Garbett Home, is it Garbett? Did you say that?
Garbett.
Are they all the same size? Are we looking at maybe making
most garages anymore are 400 square feet, and so that's usually 20 by 20. And an interesting fact, some communities, because my garage is 20 feet deep, and you try to fit a truck in there and your nose to back end to the garage. Cities around along the Wasatch Front tried to go 24, 26 feet deep. And actually, the home builders went to the legislature and had the law changed that we could require no more than 400 square foot garage on a single family home. Unless it was a 3-car garage, then they're really prescriptive on the size of the garage could be. So most garages, I would say in West Jordan, are 20 feet deep unless the person building the home requests something
Okay, so
larger.
basically what you're saying is this individual owner has a truck that doesn't fit, and there could be potential future residents that have big trucks that just don't fit, but you don't really see them asking for variance because it would be a cost for them to actually extend the garage in this case, right?
Yeah, and you're asking the likelihood will come for a variance. I don't think there's a high likelihood.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because most people, and I don't know whether these people are the original owners and are just trying to stay in their home, but most people, when they buy a home, if they're buying a used home or one that's been lived in, I think that if that's not something, if that's what they're looking for, they probably wouldn't purchase that home.
Okay.
Unless, yeah.
And then the other question I have, by extending the garage length, does that leave enough room right in front of the garage or the driveway for the truck to not, be on the street?
Yeah, because they'd leave a 22 foot.
Yeah.
And that's actually our code right now, is a 22 foot setback from the garage to the property line.
Okay.
So yes. Now, depends on the truck. There's trucks and then there's trucks. So, there's some that are awfully large, but 22 feet, so that'd be a big truck. So
a question that I have is my experience when I'm being in the real estate business, when I'm helping people buy a house and they have a big truck, they'll usually, as part of their due diligence, try to park the truck in the garage so they know that it's going to fit.
I had a friend who was selling a house, and the guy that wanted to buy it liked the house, and he goes, "I'll buy it if my truck will fit." So he pulled his truck in there and shut the doors. Okay, I'll buy it.
Yeah, I've had that happen several times. So I was just curious as to whether he bought the house originally or just bought the truck later. So anyway.
But essentially they have something like a 400 square foot garage, and they're just asking to add 80 square foot to it.
You said that there was a variation in setbacks with the garage. Now, are some of those garages deeper than others and or set forward?
So some of them are set back from the front property line.
It gives them the additional 2 feet. Are there other?
No, I don't know if the garage is larger itself. All I know is that they're set back farther from the property line.
Yeah, so that's my understanding. What you said earlier is that pretty much the garages are the same size, it's just more setback.
Yeah, I don't know many home builders that, unless they're being paid more by the person buying them. Yeah, they usually build the standard. We require 400 square foot garage, so that's they're very good at following that rule. So
it seems self-imposed almost. Welcome everyone to the West Jordan Board of Adjustment meeting. Today is July 11th, 2023. We have present board member Augustine Avalos, Clinton Smith, myself, Bill Heiner. First order of business would be to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
I move that we approve the minutes.
And I will second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be approved. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. The ayes are above the nose on that. So we'll move forward to our second item on the agenda, and that's the Brunt variance. 6333 West, 7900 South. The variance to section 13.5J-7D of the 2009 West Jordan Municipal Code to adjust the front garage setback from 26 feet to 22 feet in the LSFR zone. Cody Garrett is the applicant. Larry Gardner is representing the application. So with that, I'll turn the time over to Larry.
Thank you. So the Brunts live in Englefield Heights. It's phase 2 of Englefield Heights, I should say, of the Highlands Master Plan development. They live on 7900 South across from the park. And what the Brunts are asking for, if you see on the very right side of my screen, they're asking for a variance. Let me back up. Currently, the garage portion of their home is set back 26 feet from the property line, and they're asking to add 4 feet onto their garage. So we reduce the garage setback from 26 feet to 22 feet. And it's that small portion of building that they would be adding on to the front of the home. You can see on the left, it would look essentially the same as it does now. It would just not be as far from the property line. And for the board's edification, the property line in Englefield Heights is from the back of sidewalk, which means it's the portion of the sidewalk closest to the street. So staff does not feel like it would be noticeable or would be noticeable at all, or would cause a objectionable design to the neighborhood. Englefield Heights 2 has 41 lots in the phase, 15, and I'll go over what is in the neighborhood really quickly after I say this, that in the Highlands, or in the WSPA, I'll just call it the Highlands Ordinance, setbacks aren't standard. And for comparison, in our R110 zone, the setback for everything is always 25 feet. The front setback, that is always 25 feet. Front of the house, garage, it doesn't matter. In the Highlands, there's different setbacks. And you can be 26 feet to the garage and 22 feet to the front of the home, but the garage is generally always 26 feet. And board member Smith asked, were the other houses in violation? Because there's various lots that are in various arrays of setbacks. And so the answer is no. Because the front living portion of the home is always a minimum of 20 feet. And the intent of the Highlands ordinance is to create not a cookie cutter subdivision, but one that varies in design of the different homes. So 15 of the lots have garages set back the front facade of the home at least 6 feet. So you'd have the front facade, then the garage would be back 6 feet. 15 lots have the setback behind the front home between 1 and 3 feet. So that would be exactly what the Brunts are asking for, is to be in that 1 to 3 feet. So the garage would still be back of the front living portion of the home, but rather than 6 feet, it would move up to 20. So it would be 4 feet closer to the property line. But it'd still be back of the front facade of the home. 11 lots have garages even with or in front of the front facade of the home. All of the garages are all set back 26 feet. So as I discussed in the pre-meeting, if you look at an aerial map or go out to Englefield 2, some of the garages are out in front of the living portion of the home, but the garages are always 26 feet back from the property line. So that's the way that I believe that the ordinance was interpreted when they approved the building permit. Well, the garage is at least 26 feet, so I don't care if the living portion's in back of it, but it kind of, to me, the intent of the ordinance was to have the garage subservient to the front living portion of the home. And so I think that that's as much of a affront to the ordinance as what the Brunts are asking. So 11 of the homes do that, then 12 lots have garages set back from the property line between 22 and 25 feet, but never less than 20. And that'd be exactly the category the Brunts would be in with 12. Now, I'm not advocating for them. I'm just telling you what the facts are on the lots in phase 2 of Englefield Heights. And so, as I discussed in the pre-meeting, the Board of Adjustment should make a decision on the test of hardship. You know, is this ordinance causing a hardship? Is something general to the neighborhood causing a hardship? When I went through those findings earlier in the meeting, we can discuss those if you want. But as staff, I feel like the Brunts have met the test of hardship. I don't believe it's going to upset the design of the neighborhood. I don't think it's going to change anything in the neighborhood. And I think it will make a property owner be able to use their property the way they want to use it. So I would recommend approval of this variance. Do you have any questions for me?
Sorry, I don't mean to beat a dead horse. I'm just curious. The 12 lots that have the garages set back from the property line between 22 feet and 25 feet, never less than 20, were they considered in compliance with the ordinance because the garages were behind the main part of the house?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not going to say I assume so because we have an attorney sitting here and they hate assumptions. So.
Any other questions from board members? Okay. So I have one question for the applicant, just for my own thinking. Did you just purchase the home, or did you buy it new, or?
We bought the home in 2017.
What, as an existing home then, or new?
It was a new home.
Okay. Did you own the truck prior to purchasing the home? Again, just curious.
No.
Okay.
No.
This is board member Augustine. I'm just curious what kind of truck you got.
A 2017 Chevy. I'm gonna check. Silverado.
Okay, thank you.
That's a nice truck. So I'm assuming that once this, if you have this extension with the garage, then you can also park it in the driveway, and it's not gonna, trickle out into the street. Is that correct?
Yes, and we find it in the winter when it snows really bad, hard for us to shovel the snow. We're looking forward. We're getting a little bit older, and it make it a little bit harder for us, for our safety, go out and shovel. And so we would like to have both of our cars in the garage during winter so that we don't have to go out and clean it.
And if I could add on, sir, additionally, I'm a heart failure patient, and there was a restriction put on me for going outside and shovel snow in the winter. And so that was the other reason why we wanted to do this, so that both of our vehicles will be inside the garage.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Any other questions? All right, I'll turn the time over for I'll open the public hearing. Public comment portion of the hearing is now open. If you would like to comment on this item, please come to the podium and give your name for the record. Please address the board with your comments. You have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. All right, it's time for us to discuss any thoughts, guys?
So just going to the criteria. Criteria A is that the enforcement of the title would cause an unreasonable hardship on the applicant. I think based on the comments, it seems like the garage would, or the adjustments to the garage would meet the spirit of the law or the title, and which seems to be mostly involved with creating a look to the neighborhood. And so I think for me that it feels like it's an unreasonable hardship when changes to it don't really affect the overall look of the house or the neighborhood.
I tend to agree with that. There are, with the variations in the front elevations on the homes in there, it's not going to make a difference visually, as far as I can see, and based on the fact that they won't be able to park their truck in the garage, and it does create a hardship in that for some of the reasons that the applicant stated with shoveling snow and those types of things. So I tend to agree with that.
Criteria B, I just have a question that maybe Larry Gardner could help with. What would you describe as that this is not, that there are special circumstances attached to this property? It just seems like all the houses are probably a little bit different and have different characteristics.
The special circumstances, I really don't have a good answer to that, other than the fact that all of the properties are unique in Englefield Heights. So I think the circumstance would be that they are right now 26 feet, and their request is just to be 22 feet. And so that's the only thing I could say. There's no geologic issue or slope issue attached to this property. So they're really asking for a variation from the ordinance so they could use their property. So it's difficult for me to give you a coherent, clear answer. So
okay, that's along the lines of what I was thinking. With criteria C, it's essential to the enjoyment of substantial property right. I think Augustine already talked about that with the questions he had, and it seems like they need it in order for the snow removal or not having to remove snow from their vehicles. So and I think the other two just seem to be the same as we've discussed. It just doesn't really affect the plan. So those are my thoughts anyways, that it's not having a substantial effect on the look of the neighborhood, and so I don't really have a problem with it.
Yeah, I agree with what has been said, especially most importantly, I would say that it's in compliance with the ordinances. It's not that some homes within the same subdivision aren't already at a different setback. So this request, I think, is certainly valid.
Okay, that's been great discussion. Our options now are to approve, disapprove, or continue with the process. So I would open it up for.
I move to grant the variance for property located at 6,333 west, 7,900 south, reducing the front setback for the garage from the required setback in 13-5J-7D from 26 feet to 22 feet.
I will second that.
Thank you. It's been moved by Clinton Smith to approve the application, and seconded by Augustine Avalos. And with that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. So, okay, I think that's it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn, I guess.
I vote to adjourn.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. We'll adjourn.
Thank you, Mayor.
How'd we do, Mayor? All right. You really made me nervous when you walked in. I thought, oh, no.
I don't know if I was more nervous for you or the police.